To order. Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dot, you have any correspondence?
No, thank you.
Okay. Little change in procedure today. First off, one of the public hearings, Rams Head Inn Dock, has been adjourned. So we're not going to discuss that if people are waiting for that one. And the other thing we're going to do is, which we've never done, but apparently probably a good thing to do, is if anybody in the public wants to speak to any of the resolutions that, not to set hearings, but our appointments or any of the other resolutions we're acting on, now's the time to speak to them before we vote on them. So I don't know if everybody had a chance to look at the agenda, and if anybody wants to talk about anything. If not, you can always talk at the end of the meeting when we're open to the public. Just that we're going to act on these as we've always done. Okay, so we'll set some public hearings for waterways applications. Meg, you want to start us off?
Yep. Whereas Oscar T. Slaughterbeck, 43 Winthrop Road, has petitioned the town of Shelter Island for permission to install a mooring in Deering Harbor at a location designated as latitude 41.08496 degrees north and longitude 42.34345 degrees west. Said location was formerly occupied by the D-2699 Young Mooring. Now therefore be it resolved that pursuant to section 90-5 of the Code of the Town of Shelter Island, the town board hereby calls for a public hearing to be held at 4:40 p.m. prevailing time on the 20th day of May, 2022, for all interested persons to be heard in favor of or in opposition to the proposed installation. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Just as a note, the waterways applications, there are 5 of them. So we'll all say one. They're meeting on Monday night for anybody's notification here at 6 p.m. All right, I think it's a hybrid meeting.
It was canceled. Did I see it was canceled?
No, I don't think so.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Not that I know.
Big
Okay.
agenda, actually.
Yeah. All right. Whereas Leslie Hoffman, 14 Alpha, Heron Lane, has petitioned the town of Shelter Island for permission to install a mooring in Shelter Island Sound at a location designated as latitude 41.047643 degrees north and longitude 72.331662 degrees west. Now, therefore, be it resolved that pursuant to section 90-5 of the Code of the Town of Shelter Island, the town board hereby calls for public hearing to be held at 4:42 p.m. prevailing time on the 20th day of May, 2022, for all interested persons to be heard in favor of or in opposition to the proposed installation. So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Whereas Alley's Fault LLC, care of Joshua Sapan, 22 Prospect Avenue, has petitioned the town of Shelter Island for permission to construct a 5-foot by 30-foot ramp leading to a 5-foot by 100-foot fixed dock with a 5-foot by 30-foot L at offshore end, construct a 4-foot by 30-foot lowered platform, install 2 7-pile dolphins on the west side and 2 pile dolphins on the east side of the dock, install an 8,000-pound boat lift, and provide for water and electric to offshore end of dock in Shelter Island Sound. Now, therefore, be it resolved that pursuant to section 53-9 of the Code of the Town of Shelter Island, the town board hereby calls for a public hearing to be held at 4:44 p.m. prevailing time on the 20th day of May, 2022, for all interested persons to be heard in favor of or opposition to the proposed construction. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Whereas John M. DeSisto, 9 North Monantic Road, LLC, 9 North Monantic Road, has petitioned the town for permission to install a mooring in West Neck Creek at a location designated as latitude 41.063193 degrees north and longitude 72.353658 degrees west. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the town board hereby calls for a public hearing to be held at 4:48 p.m. prevailing time on the 20th day of May in the Shelter Island Town Hall, Shelter Island, New York, for all interested persons to be heard in favor of or in opposition to the proposed application. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Whereas Thriving Sea LLC, John M. DeSisto, 3 Bowditch Road, has petitioned the town of Shelter Island for permission to install a mooring in the West Neck mooring field at a location designated at as latitude 41.06500 6 degrees north and longitude 72.362160 degrees west. Now therefore be resolved that pursuant to section 90-5 of the Code of the Town of Shelter Island, the Town Board hereby calls for a public hearing to be held at 4:50 p.m. prevailing time on the 20th day of May, 2022, for all interested persons to be heard in favor of or in opposition to the proposed installation. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Be it resolved that Heather Lee is hereby appointed to serve as a part-time as-needed driver for the new bus for the year 2022, effective April 11th, 2022, to be paid at the rate of $22.59 per hour. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Whereas the term of Lisa Shore as a member of the West Neck Water District Board of Directors expired on April 25th, 2022. Now therefore be it resolved that Lisa Shore is hereby reappointed to serve as a member of the West Neck Water District Board of Directors for a term to expire on April 25th, 2027. So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Before I read the next one, I just see some new people join the meeting. We've adjourned the hearing for the Rams Head Inn dock application. So if you're here for that, we're not going to discuss it tonight. Whereas the term of Donna Cyrus as a member of the West Neck Water District Board of Directors expired on April 25th, 2022. Now therefore be it resolved that Donna Cyrus is hereby reappointed to serve as a member of the West Neck Water District Board of Directors for a term to expire on April 25th, 2027. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Whereas the term of Wendy Turgeon as a member of the West Neck Water District Board of Directors expired on April 25th, 2022. Now therefore be it resolved that Wendy Turgeon is hereby reappointed to serve as a member of the West Neck Water District Board of Directors for a term to expire on April 25th, 2027. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Whereas the term of Karen Kyer as a member of the Shelter Island Colonial and Native American Graves Protection Committee expired on September 21, 2021. Now therefore be it resolved that Karen Kyer is hereby reappointed to serve as a member of the Shelter Island Colonial and Native American Graves Protection Committee for a term to expire on September 21, 2024. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Paul?
Yeah, I I'll do that one. Whereas the term of Paul Shepard as a member of the you have that one?
Yeah.
They got a little out of order then. Do you want me to
What do you have?
do that one? I'll do the one right after it. I'll do,
Okay.
be it resolved that the supervisor is hereby authorized and directed to expend the sum of $1,580 from the police department's A3120.491 contracts account to WatchGuard Video, PO Box 677996, Dallas, Texas 75267-7996 for the software and hosting digital in-car video services for the police for the term of March 1st, 2022 through February 28th, 2023. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. We'll go back for the sixth appointment. Whereas the term of Paul Shepard as a member of the Contractors License Review Board expired on March 11th, 2022. Now therefore be it resolved that Paul Shepard is hereby reappointed to serve as a member of the Contractors License Review Board for a term to expire on March 11th, 2025. So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 are for applicants for town business on town property. Whereas pursuant to Town Code Section 3614.2, Kayak Shelter Island LLC, Adam Mills, 6 Emerson Lane, has filed an application with the town board for kayak and paddleboard rentals and tours and guided tours along the Cockles Harbor Marine Water Trail via the Burns Road access, and also delivering rentals island-wide by request for the 2022 summer season. And whereas the town board has reviewed said application, now therefore be it resolved that the town board does hereby grant authorization for Kayak Shelter Island LLC, Adam Mills, to conduct said activity for the year 2022, subject to the receipt of an up-to-date insurance certificate to cover the 2022 season. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Whereas pursuant to Town Code Section 36-14.2, Von Harris Supreme Spa, Alexander Roy, 55 West 116th Street, number 150, New York, New York, has filed an application with the town board to provide therapeutic massage and physical therapy on Crescent Beach starting on May 27th, 2022, and ending on September 11th, 2022, 6 days per week between 9 a.m. and 7 p.m. And whereas the applicant has provided the required application fee, and whereas the town board has reviewed said application, now therefore be it resolved that the town board does hereby grant authorization to Bon Hair Supreme Spa, Alexander Roy, to conduct said activity for the year 2022, subject to the receipt of the required insurance certificate to cover the full summer season, with the proviso that the applicant is responsible for the removal of his own garbage from his area. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Whereas pursuant to Town Code Section 36-14.2, Mark Mobius, 4 Prospect Avenue, number 504, has filed an application with the Town Board to provide outdoor natural history education for kids at various town green spaces starting on May 1, 2022, and ending on December 31, 2022, 7 days per week between 8 a.m. and 11:45 a.m. And whereas the applicant has provided the required application fee or insurance certificate, and whereas the town board has reviewed said application, now therefore be it resolved that the town board does hereby grant authorization to Mark Mobius to conduct said activity for the year 2022, subject to the receipt of the required insurance certificate and application fee of $250. So moved. I did that, yeah.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Whereas pursuant to Town Code Section 36-14.2, Ride Shore LLC, care of John Eicher and David Witzek, have filed an application with the town board to provide ship-to-shore tender launch service at Crescent Beach starting on May 27th, 2022, and ending on September 18th, 2022, 7 days per week between 11 a.m. and 8:30 p.m. And whereas the applicant has provided the required application fee, and whereas the town board has reviewed said application, now therefore be it resolved that the town board does hereby grant authorization to Ride Shore LLC, care of John Eicher and David Witzek, to conduct said activity for the year 2022, subject to the receipt of the required insurance certificate. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Whereas pursuant to the Town Code Section 36-14.2, the Crow's Nest Bar and Grill LLC, Ashley DBA The Islander, has filed an application with the town board to provide food service via the operation of a trailer at Crescent Beach starting on May 30th, 2022, and ending on September 5th, 2022,
Yes.
7 days a week between 11 a.m. and 4 p.m. And whereas the applicant has provided the required application fee, and whereas the town board has reviewed said application, now therefore be it resolved that the town board does hereby grant authorization to the Crow's Nest Bar and Grill LLC to conduct said activity for the year 2022, subject to the receipt of the required insurance certificate. So moved. And just wanted to mention the fact that I think all 6 of these, right, Mr. Supervisor, they're all repeats from the last year.
Yes.
So there are no additions
Right.
in terms of these businesses. These
Yeah,
are
I'm
the-
going to do venture out.
Well, Mark did it, but.
Mark
we
did
hadn't
it last
decided
year,
whether
but we
needed-
formalized it.
Right.
So there's nothing new that's being added. I just wanted to make that clear to everybody. These are the same people. And the good news about the grill, it'll be closer down to the bathroom
Where it was the first year.
where it was
Yeah.
the first year,
Mhm.
which we're going to have a gazebo there, and people will be able to sit and eat at a table under a gazebo, and the bathroom will be right there.
Can we
Side.
add the garbage?
So
can?
moved.
Before we second it, we want to add, Dottie, you want to add that provision that we had on the other one, that they're responsible for their own garbage
Removal.
removal.
Will do.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to skip the order. BJ, you have the next one?
I have venture out.
Yes, please.
Whereas Matt Stromberg of Venture Out Shelter Island LLC has petitioned the town board for a license to operate a commercial activity business at Crescent Beach for the 2022 summer season. And whereas the town board has reviewed the application and determined that the granting of the license is in the best interest of the town of Shelter Island, now therefore be it resolved that Venture Out Shelter Island LLC is hereby granted a license to operate a paddleboard rental business at Crescent Beach through Labor Day 2022, subject to the following. The licensee possesses the appropriate insurance as set forth in its application and the provision of the application fee of $250. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, be it resolved that the supervisor is hereby authorized and directed to expend the sum of $10,340.35 from the Police Department A 3120.491 contracts account to Central Square Technologies TriTech Software Systems, Lake Mary, Florida, for the Impact RMS with media and data sharing site, annual maintenance fee for the police department for the period June 1st, 2022 through May 31st, 2023. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Whereas the town board has determined that Town Code Section 18-2 contains a provision that is outdated and does not accurately reflect the employees that are covered by the terms and conditions of employment. And whereas pursuant to Section 18-18, the town board is authorized to amend this section of the town code via resolution. And whereas the town board desires to update said provision, now therefore be it resolved that Section 18-2 is hereby replaced to read as follows. It is the intent of this policy to set the terms and conditions under which full-time non-contract employees, hereinafter employees, shall work and perform their duties. And be it further resolved that this local law shall take effect immediately upon filing with the Secretary of State. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Whereas the town adopted an employee manual, and whereas the manual contains provision allowing an employee to carry over employees' full annual leave allotment into the next year, and whereas this provision is inconsistent with Town Code Section 18-12B, which states in pertinent part that employees may carry over a maximum of 10 vacation days into the next year. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the following provision of the employee handbook is deleted in its entirety from Section 702 of the employee handbook. An employee may now carry over vacation leave into the next year. The maximum amount that may be carried over will be equal to the employee's annual leave allotment. Any vacation leave in excess of that amount remains at the end of the last business day of the calendar year shall be canceled. And be it further resolved that Section 702 vacation leave of the employee handbook is replaced with the following. Allotment. Employees may carry over a maximum of 10 vacation days into the next year. And be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution shall go into effect immediately and that a copy shall be provided to all employees. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
The next one is for the Crescent Beach Pavilion. Whereas sealed bids for the proposed purchase and installation of a 14 by 20 prefabricated vinyl pavilion at Crescent Beach were received by the town clerk's office until 3 p.m. on the 28th day of April, 2022, at which time they were publicly opened and read aloud. And whereas Horizon Structures, 5075 Lower Valley Road at Glen, PA, 19310 has submitted a bid in the amount of $32,005. And whereas Brian Sherman, Commissioner of Public Works, has reviewed said bid and recommended that the town board accept the bid presented. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the town board does hereby award said bid to Horizon Structures, the sole bidder, for the amount of $32,005. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Whereas Lawrence Devine is currently the owner of 57 Winthrop Road, Shelter Island, and whereas this bulkhead located at said property, and whereas the bulkhead is in disrepair and compromising the structural integrity of Winthrop Road, a town road, and whereas Mr. Devine has agreed to remove this subject bulkhead and replace it with a functioning one, and whereas Mr. Devine will pay all the costs associated with said replacement, and whereas contrary to the town's position, Mr. Devine alleges that this is not his responsibility to replace the bulkhead, but is doing so in the furtherance of a real estate transaction. Whereas Mr. Devine reserves the right to commence a declaratory judgment action to let a judge ultimately decide whose responsibility it is. And whereas the town, in order to ensure that the road is immediately protected by the replacement of the bulkhead, has agreed not employ a mutinous defense in any declaratory judgment action regarding this situation. And whereas wavering a mutinous defense would merely prohibit the town from claiming that the action is mute because the subject bulkhead was already repaired. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the supervisor is hereby authorized to execute an agreement with Lawrence Devine, whereby Mr. Devine, at his own cost and expense, shall replace the subject bulkhead in exchange for the town wavering a mutinous defense if Mr. Devine commences a declaratory judgment action. So moved. Jerry, do you want to say a?
Yeah, this has to do with a bulkhead that's in disrepair over by Third Bridge. and it's undermined the road. And the contention was that, the property owner was responsible for it. He felt that he wasn't, that the town was, and basically we're sticking to our guns, but we're giving him the option after he fixes it, if he wants to pursue it in court, he can. Okay. I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The next one is to approve the agreement with Suffolk County Water Authority for the West Neck Water District. Whereas William Payne created what was then known to be West Neck Water District, herein referred to as district, in or about 1960. And whereas the district grew to serve 50 properties in or about 1980 and currently services approximately 70 properties. And whereas after Mr. Payne retired in July of 1994, the town took over the operation of the district. And whereas a 5-member board was created to oversee the district and a paid manager was retained to operate same. And whereas the paid manager was set to retire in July of 2021. And whereas on July 9th, 2021, the town board authorized the town supervisor to execute a 6-month contract with the Suffolk County Water Authority, herein referred to as SCWA, to take over the operations of the district. And whereas the town board is desirous of continuing said operational relationship with the Suffolk County Water Authority on a long-term basis, and whereas this town board is authorized pursuant to New York State law, section 209Q14, to enter into a 40-year lease with the Suffolk County Water Authority to continue said operations subject to a permissive referendum. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the supervisor is authorized to execute a 40-year lease subject to the permissive referendum with the Suffolk County Water Authority to operate, maintain, and repair the West Neck Water District for a management fee consisting of $1.7 million surcharge for capital improvements to be paid within 25 years, and the rates and charges in connection with this provision of water service to be borne exclusively by the West Neck Water District customers and any grant secured. Before I make the motion, I just want to publicly thank the West Neck Water District Board of Directors, the original Ann Dunbar and Lisa Shaw. Ann moved away. Lisa's still on it. It's kind of hard for people to understand what they did for the last 25 plus years. Is they ran a water district as volunteers, going in with no knowledge at all. And I mean, it's really unbelievable. When I was first elected, 1998, they were still getting their feet wet, with the district, and it's amazing. I mean, I can't stress enough how amazing it is that how this district was run by volunteers. So I want to make sure everybody knows that we're very thankful for all you've done, and we hope moving forward this is going to be a good thing for all of Shelter Island.
Yeah, I'd like to echo that. I think these people have done an outstanding job, and I'd like to thank Joe Fenora as our town engineer, and Stephen Kiley for our town attorney for their input into this. And it's been a town effort. This was not something that was drawn up in a month or two. This is something that's been going on for the better part of since last summer. And the longer we went with it, the better the questioning, the better the lease agreement. People raised some very important points to think about, and we made those corrections. I also would like to thank Suffolk County Water Authority for being as agreeable. They really were. Almost everything that was asked for by us on this side of the table, they've agreed to. It was a sign of good faith, I think, but a lot of effort went into this. And we're hoping, and we'll all sit back and watch it. And as far as the financing of the upgrading of the infrastructure, we're going to make a commitment of the town board, along with the grants committee, to try to the best of our ability and I think, having talked to our grants writer, she feels somewhat confident that something can be done in terms of lowering that cost. So that's a step in the right direction. We hope to apply for as much help, as much funding as we can, so that we can lower the cost to the consumer, the 70 people that are on that Suffolk County Water Authority in the West Neck Water District.
Thanks, Jim. And just before we vote, Amber and I met with the grants writer and Joe Fenora today, and we kind of fine-tuned how we're going to try to go forward with the grant process for West Neck Water. Okay, I'll make the motion. We approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Whereas Jason Weisenfeld, 14 Peconic Avenue, has petitioned the town of Shelter Island for a wetlands permit to remove existing building, construct new dwelling and detached one-car garage, renovate existing pool, remove and reconfigure existing patio with reduction in coverage within vegetative buffer, remove waterfront cesspool and replace with an IAOWTS near road, install stormwater control and install new supply well. Now therefore be it resolved that pursuant to section 129-7 of the code of the town of Shelter Island, a public hearing will be held at 4:54 p.m. prevailing time on the 20th day of May, 2022 in the Shelter Island Town Hall, Shelter Island, New York, for all interested persons to be heard in favor of or in opposition to the proposed application. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Whereas Robert Valentino, trustee for Heidi Valentino, Qualified Personal Residence Trust, 8 Osprey Lane, has petitioned the town of Shelter Island for a wetlands permit to retain existing dock constructed without building permit. Deck predates the town's 2001 wetlands code and wetlands permit requirements. Proposed work includes new generator installed adjacent to dwelling garage and 83 feet to nearest wetlands. Stormwater drywall is also proposed at 56 foot from wetlands. Existing septic 66 foot from wetlands to be removed and replaced with a new system at over 100 feet. Existing septic to be replaced after approval of the accessory building construction, which is outside the regulated area and beyond wetlands review. Now, therefore be it resolved that pursuant to section 129-7 of the code of the town of Shelter Island, a public hearing will be held at 4:56 p.m. prevailing time on the 20th day of May, 2022 in Shelter Island Town Hall, Shelter Island, New York, for all interested parties to be heard in favor of or in opposition to this proposed application. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Whereas No Name Road LLC, Richard M. Levine, member of 47A South Ferry Road, has petitioned the town of Shelter Island for a wetlands permit to demolish and remove existing 212 square feet of rear deck beneath footprint of existing 289 square foot second floor balcony to remain, and 164 steps, 58 square feet beneath the balcony, and construct in their place a 484 square foot deck, 289 square beneath the balcony, 195 square feet outside the balcony, 82 feet from tidal wetlands, with 292 square foot steps, 78 from tidal wetlands, install gravel drainage trench beneath outer edge of proposed deck steps, construct a 3 foot by 5.5 foot covered front entry landing with 1 foot by 4 foot step, at least 75.2 feet from freshwater wetlands, demolishing existing 4 foot by 4 foot front landing adjacent to existing wood deck, and construct in its place a 1 foot by 20 foot wood step, 75.4 feet from freshwater wetlands. Install 1 AC unit within 25 feet adjacent regulated area, and establish a 5 foot wide, approximately 406 square foot buffer to be planted with native vegetation in place of existing lawn at base of slope adjacent to Cockles Harbor. Now, therefore, be it resolved that pursuant to section 129-7 of the Town Code of the Town of Shelter Island, a public hearing will be held at 4:58 p.m. prevailing time on the 20th day of May, 2022 in the Shelter Island Town Hall, Shelter Island, New York, for all interested persons to be heard in favor of or in opposition to the proposed application. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Whereas 3 Pandion Acquisitions LLC, care of Richard Hogan, has petitioned the town of Shelter Island for a special permit to develop a vacant property with a single family dwelling, accessory building, pool, patio, and other typical residential improvements on lot number 2 of the Pandion Landing. Now, therefore, be it resolved that pursuant to the zoning code of the town of Shelter Island, a public hearing will be held at 5:00 p.m. prevailing time on the 20th day of May, 2022 in the Shelter Island Town Hall, Shelter Island, New York, for all interested persons to be heard in favor of or in opposition to the proposed application. So moved. Just say that remember, there are 5 properties in there. This is the first one coming to the town board. This is lot number 2, which is, I believe, the second lot as you go in on the left, on the water. So there were 3 lots on the water side, 2 lots, lot 4 and 5 are further back on the property, but this is the first one that's actually going into development. So,
No, it's the second one.
Oh, is it
because
second?
one Pandian already has a building permit,
oh, all right, okay.
but they don't
Right.
require any special permits or
Okay.
anything.
All right.
I'll second that. All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Okay. Whereas Wahid Ali, 4 Dawn Lane, has petitioned the town of Shelter Island for a wetlands permit to remove all existing lawn from within wetlands regulated area and place and grade approximately 1,300 cubic yards of clean sand over an approximately 10,000 square foot area landward of existing bulkhead to create a natural bayscape, including 6 dunes. Replant the Cape American beach grass 18-inch on center. All sand placed within existing 10-foot by 12-foot wide native graph buffer adjacent to the bulkhead. Remove approximately 121 square feet of masonry steps from within the proposed bayscape. Install approximately 236 linear feet plus or minus a 4-foot wide bluestone paver walkway with 6-inch sand joints through proposed bayscape. Replace existing 21 square foot and 69 square foot concrete entry landings with 21 square feet and 69 square feet concrete entry levels with 21 square feet and 49 square feet masonry entry landing. Replace 540 square feet pervious gravel area on water side of dwelling with approximately 1,010 square feet of pervious clamshell. Replace in place approximately 23 square feet portion of masonry pool patio within 25-foot adjacent regulated area and replace in place approximately 351 square feet portion of masonry pool patio within 25-foot adjacent regulated area with a 304 square foot in place masonry patio, 39 square feet per 39 square feet pervious gravel and 8 square feet per foot paver for fireball. Replace in place approximately 33 square feet foot portion of masonry entry landing within 25-foot adjacent regulated area and install 3 square feet of additional masonry entry landing within 25-foot adjacent regulated area. Construct approximately 95 square foot portion of a 4-foot wide wood walkway with 25-foot adjacent within 25-foot regulated area. Install approximately 750-foot portion of pervious gravel driveway in place of existing 728-foot portion of existing driveway within 25-foot buffer regulated area. Now, therefore, be it resolved that pursuant to section 129-7 of the Code of the Town of Shelter Island, a public hearing will be held at 5:10 p.m. prevailing time on the 20th day of May, 2022, in the Shelter Island Town Hall, Shelter Island, New York, for all interested persons to be heard in favor of or opposition to the proposed application. So moved.
You do the short stick on that one. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Be it resolved that the following transfer of funds is hereby approved. $200 from the Police Department A3120.487-9 account to the Police Department A3120.273 account. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Be resolved that 2022 general claims number 459 through 496 in the amount of $122,891.28. And 2022 highway claims 51 through 64 in the amount of $7,155.90. In 2022 West Neck water claim number 7 in the amount of $279.41. In 2022 community preservation claims number 4 through 6 in the amount of $19,380.62 are hereby approved for payment as audited, and the supervisor and or the town board member is hereby authorized and directed to sign the approval for payment of the same. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Whereas the Shelter Island Public Works Department has petitioned the town of Shelter Island for permission to add a fixed,
That's for after the
Hearing?
public hearings.
Then no, I think that's the last one.
We have to do the hearings first.
Yeah, I started reading and I realized.
Pay bills?
Yeah.
Okay, at this time, we're gonna recess the meeting and
Right.
and have a public hearing on the Town of Shelter Island dock application. Dot?
The application of the Shelter Island Public Works Department for permission to add a fixed catwalk with aluminum ramp going to two 8-foot by 20-foot floating docks anchored by two 8-inch pilings. Catwalk will be made of open gate through flow floats. Through flow floats will be made from black box flotation and decking to be 5/4 by 6 TimberTech composite off Bridge Street Park into Deering Harbor.
The WMAC met on April 4th, a few weeks back, discussed this application, obviously involving the fire department, police department, boats being put there in Deering Harbor. Located at Volunteer Park, just a little bit in from the westernmost part of the park before it turns in towards First Bridge. By a vote of 5-0-1, they approved it. There was one abstention. It was approved.
They made one change too, right, Jim?
Yeah,
They moved
did.
it over a
Moved it
little.
over
bit.
They moved it over one piling east.
Yeah.
So it's, as you stand there, it's just one piling closer to the right-hand side as you're looking out towards the harbor.
Yeah.
And they did that, and they put it at putting it at a slight angle so that the water that goes into Chase Creek is not impacted negatively. So that by moving it over to the right and moving it a little bit further east and angling it out, they felt that there would be a better flush of Chase Creek. Doing
Okay,
so.
anybody like to speak to this application?
And the one thing that the people did remind us of is that there's, due to the increased number of emergency calls on the north side of the island, not having access to the police boat and the fire boat in that location meant a longer time for that boat to come around from other parts of the island. So now that we have them strategically placed on the island, it's going to cut down on the response time to be able to get a boat out of there. And I would like to repeat that according to Peter Vielberg, they're not peeling out from the dock through Deering Harbor, creating all kinds of wakes. They will move cautiously through the harbor, but they will be able to shorten response time significantly. Thank you.
Okay. Before we close the hearing, this will give the police 3 docks for their 2 boats so they can decide where they need them. We have one Cockles Harbor, one in West Neck Harbor, and now one in Deering Harbor. And the fire boat has always been in Deering Harbor. And just FYI, the new owners of Jack's Marine had offered to let both the police and the fire boat stay on their dock at no charge, but we felt it would be better having our own space to work on. Okay, we'll close that hearing and open the hearing on the Lyons mooring application. Dot?
Application of Mary and Michael Lyons, 140 West Neck Road, to install a mooring in West Neck Bay at a location designated as latitude 41.06480 degrees north and longitude 72.36303 degrees west. Said mooring was formerly occupied by the Freedman W2609 mooring.
This did not go before the WMAC, did not have to go. It was a takeover mooring, and a riparian mooring, so it did not have to go. So that's why we're putting it up now.
Okay.
That doesn't make any sense.
Okay, any comments on this one? Okay, we'll close that hearing and open the hearing on the Fagan mooring application. Dot?
The application of Ingrid Fagan, 66 Gardeners Bay Drive, to install a mooring in Gardeners Bay at a location designated as latitude 41.061081 degrees north and longitude 72.193310 degrees west.
WMAC met by a vote of 6-0-1. Alaretto knows the people, so therefore he recused himself from that. It was approved.
Okay, any comments on the Fagan application? Okay, we'll close that hearing and open the hearing on the Griffiths mooring application. Dot?
The application of Bill Griffiths, 47E South Ferry Road, to install a mooring in Cockles Harbor at a location designated as latitude 41.0 06698 degrees north and longitude 72.30492 degrees west.
By a vote of 7-0, it was approved.
Okay, any comments? Okay, we'll close that hearing and open the hearing on the Gillen mooring application.
The application of Thomas Gillen, 9 Point Lane, to install a mooring in Shanty Bay of Cockles Harbor at a location designated as latitude 41.07236 degrees north and longitude 72.28118 degrees west. Said mooring location was formerly occupied by the C1279 Arcoro mooring.
7-0 vote to approve.
Okay, any comments? Okay, we'll close that hearing and open the hearing on the Shelter Island Heights Property Owners Corporation dock reconstruction application.
The application of Shelter Island Heights Property Owners Corporation, 9 Summerfield Place, to remove and dispose of an 8-foot by 84-foot existing dock, construct new 8-foot by 84 dock in kind in place, construct 2 new 7-foot wide benches between dock piles, and construct new lifeguard chair on top of corner pile at end of dock at property located at Suffolk County Tax Map 700-521.
By a vote of 6-0, it was approved. And because it was replaced in kind, the only addition I think was the lifeguard chair, which was
And benches.
and the bench, yeah, which were added, and they're good add-ons, by the way, for safety reasons, particularly the lifeguard chair, because you'll actually be up on the dock looking down, you know, at the swim area.
Good. Any questions, comments? Okay, we'll close that hearing. And the next is the Ramhead in-dock application, which the applicant asked to adjourn. The next one is a public hearing on a local law regarding assessors. Dot, rather than read the whole thing, you want me to just do the summary?
Supervisor, you got to open up the Rams Head filing. You have to read the notice, open it, and then
Okay, sorry. Okay, Dot.
Okay. The application of Rams Head Inn LLC to remove and dispose of existing 5-foot by 85-foot dock, construct new 5-foot by 85 fixed dock with 3-foot by 12-foot aluminum ramp leading to an 8-foot by 20-foot floating dock and 8-foot by 40-foot floating dock, placed in an L configuration and secured with 3 anchor piling. Construct pedestrian access stairs over dock and construct a 5-foot by 70-foot elevated ramp walkway from existing 10-foot by 10-foot access platform leading to dock structure in Cockles Harbor.
Okay, so I'm going to make a motion. We adjourn this application.
Okay.
The applicant's request. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry.
You made a motion. Do we need to vote on that? Or-
Yes.
Wait a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And then just for reference point, that's the old Bennett dock.
You don't vote in a public hearing.
I'm sorry?
I say you wait till you don't vote in a public hearing. So,
Okay.
Thanks, Dot.
okay.
Okay. Dottie, you want to just do the whereas on the next one?
Okay, sure. Town board calls for a public hearing on a proposed local law repealing Town Code Chapter 3 entitled Assessors in its entirety and to create a new chapter entitled Sole Appointed Assessor in order to abolish the offices of the 3 elected assessors and create the office of a single appointed assessor as follows. You want
Okay.
the intent read?
No.
No? Okay.
I'll do the summary of it, Dot.
Okay.
You don't have to read the whole thing. The purpose of this local law is to convert from elected assessors to a sole appointed assessor so as to increase the consistency, continuity, and proficiency of the assessing of the town of Shelter Island's properties. Again, this has been an ongoing discussion at work sessions. We're one of 40 towns in the state of New York that still has elected assessors. This is something Al Hammond, the previous tax assessor, has been pushing for 20 years. And we just think it's time to appoint a professional to the position rather than have elected people that have to learn the position. So that's it. Yeah. Okay. So we're setting a hearing on this, or was it?
This is.
Okay,
this
this is-
hearing.
Okay, any comments? Questions?
I don't see anybody online.
No. Okay. So moved.
Close it.
I'll close the hearing.
Yep.
Okay, we'll close that hearing and reconvene or. Wait,
Got
I
one
see there's
more.
Do
Oh,
a
there's
public
more?
hearing
Two
on
more.
local.
Yep, gotcha.
Okay,
This is the veterans exemption,
shall I read the notice now?
please.
Do I have? I don't
No,
have it.
Dodd wants to know.
Oh, yeah,
Open.
yeah. does it
Go
have
ahead.
the,
Okay.
does it have
Town
the
Board
summary?
calls for a public hearing on a proposed local law amending Town Code Chapter 115 entitled Taxation, article entitled Exemptions for Veterans to increase the exemptions for disabled, wartime, and combat veterans as follows. You don't want that all read?
No, we'll do the
No.
summary again,
Yeah.
Todd.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, the purpose of this local law is to amend the town code to update the maximum taxation exemptions for veterans in proportion to the increase in the cost of living and property values here on Shelter Island.
Okay, again, this was discussed at length in a couple of work sessions. Any comments or questions? Okay, we'll close that hearing and open the hearing on a local law regarding community housing fund. Todd?
Okay, this is a local law to update the maximum taxation exemptions for, wait a minute, that's the wrong one. Public hearing on a proposed local law amending the town code of Shelter Island to include a new chapter, chapter 52, to be entitled Community Housing Fund as follows.
So are you the summary, BJ?
No, I don't.
I do.
You
Oh,
do.
Amber, you have it? Okay.
Yes. The purpose of this local law is to amend the town code to establish a community housing fund where monies deposited therein may be expended solely for community housing opportunities within Shelter Island. It is a necessary repository for any funds reserved for community housing, including from the soon to be proposed 0.5% supplemental real estate transfer tax. Further, this amendment ensures that any monies expended from the fund will be in conformity with a community housing plan.
Okay, and we have Liz Hanley and Maria Magenti here from the Housing Committee. Would you like to speak?
Community Housing
Fund.
Advisory Board.
Community Housing Fund Advisory Board.
Jafab.
Chafab. Chafab.
I thought I was going to be presenting on this, but am
Really, it's a public hearing, so
I? Okay.
we
I
discussed it in public already.
Um,
Work session. Go ahead, Stephen.
I don't know who's in there. Yeah.
Mr. Supervisor, I think Ms. Hanley should run through the pertinent parts of and the more important provisions of the proposed local law in case anybody in the public did not attend the work session or see it.
We're ready for you.
All right,
Whenever you
cool.
prepared, we're ready.
Yeah, I have a quick, just a quick
Yep.
slideshow. So I just kind of, I did give this presentation before at the work session. So just, I'm just going to kind of go through the law. What you'll see, if you could move to the next
It's
page.
okay.
Christine, do you mind moving to the next slide? Okay. So just so you know, I'm going to kind of run through it. The blue is going to be kind of the summary of it, but I have outlined in white the entirety of the law, so you can see how we got to the summary. Basically, the intent of this fund is to hold the money set aside for community housing, including any money from the proposed transfer tax that will be on the ballot in November. The money can only be used in line with the plan that the town is going to be developing this summer with community input. Next slide, please. These are just some of the definitions. We can kind of skip those. Next slide. There's a couple things I feel like are, do you mind going back just for one? Thank you so much. There's a couple terms in here. This slideshow is also available online. If you want to look at this, they talk about in here the primary residence. There is actually a cap in here of just over $1 million so basically when we're talking about housing that can be used as community housing, there are some limitations in here. This is what we're kind of talking about. And when we talk about eligible individuals for community housing, again, there are some guidelines in place and the income is capped at $124,700 for 1 and 2 person households and $145,800 for 3-person households. So modest. If you can move to the next slide. So really important to kind of think about what kinds of monies can go into the fund. Funding sources can include the proposed transfer tax that we have going, that we have on the ballot. The rest of these also bonds. The town can put in funds. You could put in profit from the sale or rental of community housing, any gifts, and any state or federal grants. And I think that it's just kind of there's limitations on kind of what can go in and how it can be expended. So this is the only monies that can go in. Any interest from the fund stays in the fund. Next slide, please.
Wait, can the gifts come from really rich people?
The gifts can come from anyone who feels like giving.
I'm from poor people too.
Yeah, anybody. And I just want to point out that just because we have mentioned the transfer tax, that is not what this law is, but because we have referenced it, I think it's important to kind of talk about it. I've indicated that in a different color because that is not what's getting passed today, but I think that it is important. So there is a transfer tax that will be put on the ballot for the folks of Shelter Island to vote on this November. What it is it's a tax on the transfer property. Currently, we have a 2% tax that goes to fund the community preservation fund, responsible for a lot of the amazing green spaces and things like that around the island. So what this would do is it would add an additional 0.5%. So you can see that I've said currently, this is like kind of what it would look like and proposed 2.5. So that's the total, obviously with 2% going to CPF and 0.5 going to community housing. The things are going to change a little bit with the exemption values. So you'll see that the exemptions go up. What that means in practice is for homes costing less $1 million and less, the transfer tax will go down. For houses about $1 million, it will stay the same. And so only homes above $1 million will experience any increase in a transfer tax. So yeah, go to the next one. Thank you so much. So the fund is limited in purpose. So these are some of the things that are possible for the fund to be spent on. And I think it's really important to note here that for Shelter Island, our fund that we are looking at establishing today can only be used in service of purposes that our town basically approves in our housing plan. And so that will be developed with community input. But these are all kind of, this is like kind of the menu of things that you could choose. So we could choose all of them, we could choose some of them. What's ever appropriate for our community. We could do help for first-time homebuyers. And so when we say help for first-time homebuyers, it has to be people who live and work in the town. We can't help with more than 50% of the home price. If it's a loan, it has to be repaid to the town. Any money from the loan would go back into the fund. And this could also be a public-private partnership. All right, next one. Next slide, please. Thank you so much. So in addition to helping first-time homebuyers, we could also use this money to construct community housing for sale. We could construct community housing in a public-private partnership for sale. We could construct and maintain rental community housing. We could convert existing structures into community housing for sale or rent. We could purchase existing home housing units and to be used as community housing for rent or for sale. And we can also provide housing counseling services. Now, I think it's really important to note that we might do some, we might do all of these, and it's for the community to decide which is most appropriate. But these are kind of our menu of things that are possible. Next slide, please. And then just eligible expenses. You know, we can buy land, construction, planning, related costs. And then, you know, any monies that we receive, let's say if we were to construct in either the town or in a public-private partnership, any monies received from sale of those properties go back into the fund, as would any rental income. The other part of this law is that there is a board that will review and make recommendations regarding the town's housing plan. I serve on that board as the chair. Next one. Next slide, please. All right, so I think this is really the heart of it, and the part that I really want to emphasize is that before the town, so this law is establishing the fund. Before you can spend any of the money, the housing plan must be developed and adopted by the town board. It has to, there's again some guidelines here. It must minimize any social, economic, or environmental costs. It must be built in areas where it makes sense for transportation, sewer, and water. We have a very fragile ecosystem. It's really important that we keep this in mind. Conservation, that's our third concept, and coordination, working with neighboring communities to be efficient and cost effective. Next slide, please. The community design, making sure that we're centering people. Like, does it make sense for actual residents of Shelter Island? Transportation, reducing individual auto and pollution, consistency, meaning that we're following building and land use codes. And really what I take that is to make it cohesive in our kind of architectural, thank you. Make it look, it needs to look like it belongs. But probably the most important piece of the plan, I think, is the last one, which is community collaboration. And that it is proposed, it is part of this law that we will work together with the community to develop a long-term plan with community input and participation. So I think that is probably the most important piece. There are parameters, but it's up for us as citizens and as a community to decide what is best. And any money setting out from this fund will only be used in service of that. Next slide, please. This has to be updated every 5 years. What's appropriate for us now might not be appropriate. You know, things change, as we know, in the last few years. So this must be updated. It has to be added to our comprehensive plan. It has to be part of a bigger picture. Also important, it has to be perpetually affordable. So this needs to be taken into design, really thinking here about homes for sale and any kind of private-public partnership, really keeping that front of mind. And also ensuring housing opportunities are provided in a fair manner. All right, next slide. And then this is just, I think that's pretty much it. If you could go to the second to last one, I just want to do just a sum up. Next slide, please. And just, go back one. Yes. You know, well, this is the summary we already did. So I guess we will go to the next one. Next slide, please. Thank you. So I also just want to invite everyone to join us this summer as we draft our housing plan as a community. The Community Housing Fund Advisory Board will be organizing public input sessions, and we really want to hear from you. Please reach out and we will be forthcoming in details. Really interested in getting community input.
Liz, I have a couple of questions.
Yes, of course.
Before I do, I just want to remind everybody, this hearing is to establish the fund only.
Yeah, that is.
It was a very informative process for everything else going on. But according to the governor's legislation, we can't have the referendum if we don't have the fund in place.
Yeah, and so this, yeah, we're just kind of establishing the kind of the receptacle of the money. And I think really, regardless of whether the transfer tax passes or not, I mean, that's kind of neither here nor there, but I think it's really important that we kind of are setting aside housing money. And we're saying right here in this legislation that we're only going to spend it in line with what our community housing plan with input from the town.
Right.
And that, I think, regardless, like I said, of whether that transfer tax passed or not, I think that that's exactly as it should be.
And Liz, just an observation.
Yeah.
On the transfer tax itself, anything less than $1 million is going to be less than they're paying today.
Correct.
Let's
Yeah.
say over $1 million.
Yeah. So at $1 million, it's the same.
Right.
Under $1 million, it's less.
Less. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Maria, do you have anything? Yeah. You have to come up. You still have to come up to the mic. You might as well stay there,
You
Liz.
know how much I love standing up here is what it is. Okay, my question is, do you have the numbers that, just to give a sense of scale, the numbers from what we would have had we had that 0.5% in the last 5 years? We talked about it at our CHB meeting. Okay.
If we had it.
If we had
in the
had it in
last
place,
year,
yes,
Money.
2021.
yes,
It was $30 million for the East End cumulative.
right.
No, that was 2020. That was before the.
That was
surge.
before the only reason I bring it up is that there's a possibility, and of course this market isn't going to last forever,
Right.
but the idea that we would have access to funds over time that would come from these moments of extraordinary growth is critical.
I want to take that back. It was 30 million in the 2 years that Cuomo vetoed it.
Oh.
So it was before, it was
Right,
18 and 19.
That's right. That's right.
Had it been in place, it would have been $30 million.
The East End.
Yep, for the East End. Okay.
So obviously the five of us hopefully are in real support of that referendum. You know, I mean,
Yes.
it's a good piece of change.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
maybe not as lucrative as it has been, but going forward, every
Listen.
nickel dime that you get is important, and
Yeah.
it should be significant. It's not going to be nickel dime. You know,
Yeah.
So
The Block Island has a similar setup. Most of the island communities have housing funds, Martha's Vineyard, Nantucket, Block Island, and hopefully ourselves, obviously, which is usually comes from a tax, but is absolutely crucial to maintain the idea of housing
Right.
through time.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else, comments, questions?
Stephen Jacobs has a comment.
Stephen?
Hi, everybody. I just have two questions, and that is whether two particular provisions of the law as drafted could somehow limit the town board's ability to define affordable housing as they wish in the future. The first provision is in the legislative intent. It wasn't, I don't believe it was shown on the slide, but it reads, at least according to the agenda of the April 8th meeting, as follows. The town board finds that there is a critical need for workforce housing on Shelter Island. So my question is whether that arguably limits the ability of the town board to make eligible for community housing seniors, retirees, or people with disabilities.
It's income-based, is it not?
Stephen?
Yes, so this is for it. The definition in the code is what you can spend the money for. So community housing is a primary residential property for an eligible individual. That's how they define it. The intent of this is for workforce housing, but and the definition is taken directly out of the state enabling legislation. So that's what I know it's amorphous, but the intent is for workforce housing.
Well, I was referring to the legislative intent. Is it the town board's intent to exclude seniors who aren't working from being potentially eligible for workforce housing?
No. Seniors
Yeah.
can, again, a primary residential property is any 1 or 2 family house townhouse or condominium, and the definition is community housing, a primary residential property for an eligible individual. If they are eligible, they can apply to whatever program that the town will have in place. I think the critical need right now is for workforce housing.
So I just wanted to kind of point to the eligible individual portion. So you'll see that, this is for housing for eligible individuals. And if you read the definition of eligible individual, it's income capped. So everyone underneath that. So I think that would include all those folks that we're talking about that you're referring to. I think that they would all be included in income underneath that amount.
Criteria, you're eligible.
I think if you look at eligible individual, that's right. But if you look at the legislative intent, if the intent is simply for workforce housing, people who meet the income level but aren't working presumably don't qualify as workforce housing. That's my concern.
Okay, yeah, the intent doesn't trump the legislation. The intent, again, is just the reasoning why it is being enacted right now. The definitions within the law is what controls. So it would be applicable to any eligible individual, retired,
Yes,
working,
no problem.
and for a primary residential property.
My second question is with respect to the provision of financial assistance to first-time home buyers. There are additional criteria of being a resident of the town or being employed by the town, but those additional qualifications or eligibility requirements do not apply to various of the other provisions, and I'm wondering whether
I think we're getting way ahead of ourselves here.
So yeah, I want to just, this is all the potential possible uses, but again, this is going to be directed, and this is going to be directed by the town's housing plan that will be developed with what's appropriate for Shelter Island. So these are just all the things that are potentially possible, but we're probably not going to do all of these. This is the outer limits of what is possible. And then it will be for the town board and with community input to decide out of this menu what makes sense for our island.
And again, this is a hearing to establish the fund.
Yeah.
I know you have another meeting set up this weekend for community input. So it's going to be quite a bit of discussion in the next few months.
Yes. Yeah. There's going to be a lot of input of just like, working with the community to figure out what is the appropriate choice and what are appropriate options for our community.
And can I just chime in, and then I'll let you go just real quick. This might answer it. This law is almost verbatim taken from the statutory enabling legislation. And this is the model that every town uses on the East End and the Peconic Bay region. And this is exactly what they did for the Community Preservation Fund. So the qualification in that section is, again, directly out of the statute. And then all the other purposes of the fund or reasons monies can be expended, it's all going to be tailored to whatever the plan allows and calls for. So the plan could say, you can only build houses or increase the eligibility to just residents. Potentially.
Okay, so the plan trumps essentially this.
Exactly.
Correct.
Yeah, this is just everything that's possible, and then the plan will, once the plan is in place and approved, money can only be spent in service of that plan. So that's why it's really important to have that input and to determine what's appropriate. Okay,
thank you for the clarification.
This is the piggy bank, and then the plan will tell you how you're allowed to use the piggy bank.
Exactly.
Two important things that you mentioned also is that the 5-year review that's essential. It's not something that's cast in stone that never be looked at again.
Yeah.
The second thing that jumped out at me is it's part of the comprehensive plan. That
Yeah.
The comprehensive plan and the housing plan are going to be, they're going to complement one another.
Exactly.
Now, it's going to be an important piece in the new comprehensive plan.
Okay. Wendy?
I have a question just for clarification. So on the chart with the transfer tax lists, okay, so what does transfer tax currently exist? What's that used for? All right, so why would we decrease that for those being sold? Well, the lower ones, I thought that was going down.
The feeling was, Wendy, that I don't want to say punish, but to try to keep houses affordable, we didn't want to increase the transfer tax to, affordable housing. I mean, the reality is there's nothing here under $1 million anymore. So,
Yeah.
so
I
it's,
think it's two things. One, to make it more palatable in passing, because you're, now adding 0.5%. So it's just lessening the burden a little bit. And secondly, I think there's also been a recognition that, preservation of open space has impacted directly affordable housing. And so it's just trying to level back up the playing field.
oh, so that's kind of a clash in a way,
It's just recognizing that there have been some
potential
imperfections.
conflict.
And so just
Okay.
balance it out.
And I guess the other thing I'd ask for in your chart would be really clear about those numbers. So is it you need like greater and less than? So is it 2 million goes up to what is it, 18? So do you want to say over 2 million, or is it between over 1 million that goes up?
It stays the same at up to $1 million.
Okay.
Right, but if someone sells their house for 1.5 million, it's not going to stay the same.
Yeah, above $1 million, it does
It would, that was the point. It just the logic there's a little confusing. If people are trying to calculate how might this affect me, depending on where they fall on that chart.
Liz, can you please sit at the one of the empty chairs to answer questions,
Yeah.
please, because we cannot hear you. Thank you.
Thanks, Christine.
And Wendy,
Okay.
just so, I mean, it wouldn't impact you. The buyer pays the transfer tax.
It's just
The seller.
so it's clear that
Yeah,
so the
no.
viewer would understand
Right.
where their property might fall in that spectrum.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I
I'm
think
glad
that
you said that. Yeah.
no, that's really, I mean, I think to your first point, I don't think that there's, about the potential impact on just like, is it going to lessen the amount going to CPF, right? I mean, there's that,
Right.
because that's really important. But I think that considering how few properties are actually under $1 million, I think that it's going to be pretty minimal. So, that I think that was the intent there. I mean, I guess we could go through like listings. I just don't think that there are probably very many, right?
So it looks more palatable.
Well,
in a
also,
way.
and again, it's really to try to make housing more achievable at that lower end of the spectrum. So for potentially people also purchasing a home that they don't have an additional transfer tax if they're at that lower end, like under $1 million.
It's just to make affordable housing affordable.
Like
So
a
it
little
would
bit
be
more
an
affordable.
oxymoron. It would be an oxymoron if the transfer tax would increase for houses that are on the
I
market.
hear what you're
and
saying.
affordable.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
That I understand.
that's
Yeah.
All right.
exactly
Okay.
what we're
That
trying
sort of
to
makes
Yeah,
sense.
you're explaining it really
Okay.
well.
All right.
And
Great.
as
Thank you.
far as the whole concept of maybe competing with the CPF, when Fred Thiel initiated the CPF 20-something years ago, I mean, there was a clear need to preserve land. I think over years they realized, well, there's also a clear need to preserve land, protect the water. So they took 20% of that money from the land preservation for water quality. And now I think Fred realized, we're in a housing crisis stage, but he didn't want to, say, well, okay, let's abolish the one fund because it's doing such a great job.
Yeah.
And at one of our recent meetings, he said, in the 25 years, 20 plus years that it's been in place, it's never been contested. Towns haven't, well, there was one incident in East Hampton where it was taken care of, where towns used the money for things they shouldn't have. It was strictly for land preservation. And now we're being very proactive in the water quality part of it that we can use. So now this is the third step is, it's changed from just pure land preservation to what we need the community preservation.
That's sort of the catch-22 is that the water needs the open land, but then you also want housing, which will use more water. So it's kind of balancing, getting all these balls in the air and balancing them.
Look at these things on the walls up here. We now have over 25 properties that are protected. The island is between 31 and 32% protected. Counting Mashonack and Sylvester Manor, they're obviously the two bigger pieces of parcel. But there's a lot of other smaller parcels, whether they're an acre, 5 acres, 10 acres, 15, 20 acres, it all comes together And we're approaching a third of the island being totally protected.
Right. I just know that the water quality and quantity is a huge issue for the citizens in terms of the comprehensive plan. And I'm not against this kind of housing move at all. It's just sort of be mindful of how the effect all of this has.
And I think that that's really important. And I think that, I mean, we're working with the CPF because that's really important to, I think, the folks that are working on community housing. You can't make housing and that would, somehow. Exactly. Thank you, Maria. So, working on the, subject to the exact same standards that all other building is held to on the island. And I think for newer ones, being able to use, better IA systems, all those things, it has to be. And in fact, there's, as part of the legislation that we'll kind of see later, it has to be with smart growth principles. So it has to have those issues top of mind built in. So you can't you don't want to help people with the house, but mess up the water. You have to deal with both of them at the same time. And so I just want you to know that we're working with conservation folks, and that is absolutely in the front of our minds.
Stephen, did you have something?
Yes, I understand the transfer tax is the sexy topic, and this is basically just a bank account, so it's the boring thing, but this is a premature conversation. On May 17th, we're going to have a work session to formally introduce the community housing transfer tax. And I think we should
better graph for you.
I think we should stop the conversation now regarding the tax and save it for the work session because let's make sure we have all our facts accurate before we start going down this road.
Okay. But it's good to keep the public informed where we're going.
Yeah. Thanks for your questions.
Anybody else? Okay, we're going to close that hearing and we're going to reconvene the regular town board meeting and act on the public hearings.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilperson.
I got the first one. All right. Whereas the Shelter Island Public Works Department has petitioned the town of Shelter Island for permission to add a fixed catwalk with aluminum ramp going to 2 8 by 20 foot floating docks anchored by 2 8-inch pilings. Catwalk will be made of open grate through flow. Floats will be made from black box flotation and decking to be 5/4 by 6-inch timber tech composite off Bridge Street Park into Deering Harbor. And whereas a public hearing was duly held on the 29th day of April, 2022 for all interested persons to be heard in favor of or in opposition. Now therefore be it resolved that pursuant to Part 617, Section 617.10 of the State Environmental Quality Review Act and Chapter 60 of the Code of the Town of Shelter Island, notice is hereby given that the town board as lead agency has determined that this project will not have a significant effect on the environment and a draft environmental impact statement will not be prepared. Environmental review status pursuant to Chapter 60 of the Town Code of the Town of Shelter Island, Type 2, reasons supporting this determination. The proposed dock, 1, will not cause an obstruction into navigable channels or an interference with navigation. 2, it will not adversely affect the public's right to use town waters or land under town waters. 3, will not adversely affect shell fishing grounds or other aquatic wildlife which may exist in the immediate area. 4, will not adversely affect the quality of the tidal waters, shorelines, or beaches. 5, will not adversely affect the rights of adjacent residents. And be it further resolved that the town clerk is hereby authorized to issue a permit for the aforementioned construction as per specifications filed after said applicant pursuant to Section 53-9 of the Code of the Town of Shelter Island has filed with the town clerk a certificate that the owner has at least $300,000 liability insurance on the location and operations covered by said permit, a copy of the contractor's home improvement contractor's license, and a certificate from the contractor performing the operations covered by said permit that said contractor has an owner's contractor's policy issued in favor of the town of Shelter Island with the liability limits of at least $500,000 covering operations in the contractor pursuant to said permit. And be it further resolved that said operations shall be completed within 1 year from the date of issuance of this permit, Said permit is subject to the recommended limitations and any requirements that may be necessary under the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, the Army Corps of Engineers, and any other agencies having jurisdiction. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Whereas Mary and Michael Lyons, 140 West Neck Road, have petitioned the town of Shelter Island for permission to install a mooring in West Neck Bay at a location designated as latitude 41.06, 48.0 degrees north and longitude 72.3633 degrees west. Said mooring location was formerly occupied by the Freeman W2609 mooring. And whereas the public hearing was duly held on the 29th day of April 2022, for all interested persons to be heard in favor of or in opposition. And whereas all interested persons were heard in favor of opposite. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the town clerk is hereby authorized to issue the permit for the aforementioned installation. So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Whereas Ingrid Fagan, 66 Gardeners Bay Drive, has petitioned the town of Shelter Island for permission to install a mooring at Gardeners Bay at a location designated as latitude 41.061081 degrees north and longitude 72.193310 degrees west. And whereas a public hearing was duly held on the 29th day of April 2022 for all interested persons to be heard in favor of or opposition. And whereas all interested persons were heard in favor or in opposition. Now therefore be it resolved that the town clerk is hereby authorized to issue a permit for the aforementioned installation. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Whereas Bill Griffiths, 47 East Southbury Road, has petitioned the town of Shelter Island for permission to install a mooring in Cockles Harbor at a location designated as latitude 41.06698 degrees north and longitude 72.30492 degrees west. And whereas a public hearing was duly held on the 29th day of April 2022 for all interested persons to be heard in favor of or in opposition to, and whereas all interested persons were heard in favor of or in opposition, now therefore be it resolved that the town clerk is hereby authorized to issue a permit for the aforementioned installation. So moved.
Second. I'm sorry.
That's right.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Whereas Thomas J. Gillen, 9 Point Lane, has petitioned town of Shelter Island for permission to install a mooring in Shanty Bay of Cockles Harbor at a location designated as latitude 41.07236 degrees north and longitude 72.28118 degrees west. Said mooring location was formerly occupied by the C-1279 Arcoro mooring. And whereas a public hearing was duly held on the 29th day of October 2022 for all interested persons to be heard in favor of or in opposition. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the town clerk is hereby authorized to issue a permit for the aforementioned installation. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Whereas the Shelter Island Heights Property Owners Corporation, 9 Somerville Place, has petitioned the town of Shelter Island for permission to remove and dispose of an 8-foot by 84-foot existing dock, construct a new 8-foot by 84-foot dock in kind in place, construct 2 new 7-foot wide benches between dock piles, and construct new lifeguard chair on top corner pile at the end of dock, a property located at Suffolk County Tax Map number 700-5-2-1. And whereas a public hearing was duly held on the 29th day of April 2022 for all interested persons to be heard in favor of or in opposition, now therefore be it resolved that pursuant to Part 617, Section 617.10 of the State Environmental Quality Review Act, Chapter 60 of the Town Code of the Town of Shelter Island, notice is hereby given that the town board has lead agency has determined that the project will not have a significant effect on the environment and a draft environmental impact statement will not be prepared. Environmental review status pursuant to Chapter 60 of the Town Code of the Town of Shelter Island, Type 2, reasons for supporting this determination are the same as the previous resolution. Be it further resolved that the town clerk is hereby authorized to issue a permit for the aforementioned construction as per specifications filed after said applicant pursuant to Section 53-9 of the Code of the Town of Shelter Island has filed with the town clerk a certificate that the owner has at least $300,000 of liability insurance on the location and operations covered by said permit, a copy of the contractor's current home improvement contractor's license, and a certificate from the contractor performing the operations covered by said permit that said contractor has an owner's contractor's policy issued in favor of the town of Shelter Island with a liability limit of at least $500,000 covering operations of the contractor pursuant to said permit. And be it further resolved that said operations shall be completed within 1 year from the date of issuance of this permit. Said permit is subject to the recommended limitations and any requirements that may be necessary under the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, the Army Corps of Engineers, and any other agencies having jurisdiction. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. On behalf of the applicant, the Rams Head Inn dock is been adjourned.
Okay.
Okay, so then I have the veterans one. Yeah, that's next.
Okay,
Where's,
so-
I have,
oh, wait, I'm sorry.
Anybody have the?
I've got
assessors?
the assessors. Well, I'm just going to do the summary part.
Yeah.
Yeah. So whereas a public hearing was duly held on 29th day of April, 2022 in the Shelter Island Town Hall, Shelter Island, New York, for all interested persons to be heard in favor of or in opposition to a proposed local law repealing Town Code Chapter 3 entitled Assessors in its entirety and create a new Chapter 3 entitled Sole Appointed Assessor in order to abolish the offices of the 3 elected assessors and create the office of a single appointed assessor. And whereas the remainder of the change can be found with the town clerk
Right.
and online. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
whereas a public hearing was duly held on the 29th day of April 2022 in the Shelter Island Town Hall, Shelter Island, New York, all interested persons to be heard in favor of or in opposition to a proposed local law amending Town Code Chapter 115 entitled Taxation, article entitled Exemptions for Veterans to increase the exemptions for disabled, wartime, and combat veterans. And whereas all interested persons were heard in favor of or in opposition, now therefore be it resolved that local law blank dash 2022 entitled Taxation is hereby adopted as follows. Be it enacted by the Town Board of the Town of Shelter Island as follows. Section 1, legislative intent. The Town Board has determined that due to the increase in the cost of living and property values, an increase in the veterans' exemptions is warranted as a small token of appreciation for their service. Section 2, amendment. Section 115-3A of the Shelter Island Town Code, Chapter 115, Taxation is hereby amended by deleting the stricken words and adding the underlined words as follows. 115-3, increase in maximum exemptions. I'm not going to read the stricken words. I'm going to go straight to the what's going to be in place. The maximum exemption allowable, and I guess I am reading it, never mind. Allowable to qualifying residential real property owned by disabled, wartime, and combat veterans pursuant to paragraphs A, B, and C of subdivision 2 of section 458A of the New York real property tax law is hereby increased from 54,000 to 75,000. 36,000 to 50,000, 180,000 to 250,000 respectively, effective for the 2023/2024 tax year. Section 3 authority, the proposed local law is enacted pursuant to real property tax law 458A. I'm going to skip severability and it will take effect upon filing with the state Secretary of State pursuant to municipal home rule law. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I abstained, and I have abstained throughout the entire thing. I've not been in, actually even in the room for any of this discussion, so I abstained from the vote because obviously it qualifies as a combat veteran.
Okay, so it's 4-0-1 in favor. Somebody have the community housing one? I will do a summary.
We'll do this.
I got it.
Well, you don't need all. You have the summary?
Yeah.
Yeah, just
Just read it.
Yeah, let me just.
Yeah, but that big
So I'll do the
conversation.
intro and then the executive summary.
Okay.
Whereas a public hearing was duly held on the 29th day of April 2022 in the Shelter Island Town Hall, Shelter Island, New York, on a proposed local law amending the Town Code of Shelter Island to include a new chapter, Chapter 52, to be entitled Community Housing Fund. And whereas all interested persons were heard in favor of or in opposition, now therefore be it resolved that local law blank, it'll be filled in later, -2022 entitled Community Housing Funds is hereby adopted as follows. And I will go straight to the back. Excuse me. The purpose of this local law is to amend the town code to establish a community housing fund where monies deposited therein may be expended solely for community housing opportunities within Shelter Island. It is a necessary repository for any funds reserved for community housing, including from the soon to be proposed 0.5% supplemental real estate transfer tax. Further, this amendment ensures that any monies expended from the fund will be in conformity with a community housing plan. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, at this time, we're going to reconvene our regular town board meeting. We already did that. We're going to open the meeting to the public. Any questions, comments? from the audience, from the Zoom audience? I don't see any hands. Sure.
I just want to say thank you for taking community housing so seriously. And I really appreciate this board's support on this. I think it's so important. So I just wanted to say big thanks.
Thank you. Okay, if nobody else has any comments or questions, I'm going to make a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, thanks, everybody. Have a good weekend.
So we have yours.
I did it. Those are them.
Okay. How about the ones you read for the other? This
Yeah,
is the other one.
this is
right?
what, this is everything.
Aye.
Yeah, but even that.
Amber, can you please stop recording downstairs?
No, it's authorizing me to sign it out. So Monday I'll sign it. Nah, I'm not into photos. We're done. Well, yeah, we have to sign it and send it to them.
Thank you, Liz.